welcome to the Satellite Tracking Channel. I'm Scott Tilley, and today we're going to talk about how I got into tracking satellites by radio. It all started with USA-225, launched on the NRO 66 mission. It was launched on a Minotaur 1 rocket in 2011 and quickly disappeared into the night sky. USA-225 was a National Reconnaissance mission and part of the Rapid Pathfinder program. It was launched into a 1,200 kilometer circular orbit inclined 90 degrees to the equator, and at an altitude of 1,200 kilometers would have been a very difficult target to locate visually without some other means of determining its location. In the summer of 2011, I began visual satellite observing quite aggressively. I rigged up a video zoom lens and a low-light television camera and started actively recording passes from classified missions and then learning how to reduce their positional and time observations to a level of accuracy that proved useful for analysis. However, I live in a rainforest, and as fall approached, the clouds broke in and the rains began, and I was effectively going to be locked out of observing visually for the winter for at least 9 months. So I decided to deploy some radio equipment towards monitoring S-band satellite signals. In the frequency range between 2200 and 2300 megahertz, the international community has set aside this slice of spectrum for telemetry, tracking, and control beacons from satellites to communicate with Earth. So I began scanning this area of spectrum, and particularly started looking at the Naval Observation Surveillance Satellite frequency at 2232.5 megahertz and noted their carriers. It wasn't long afterwards until I noted an unusual Doppler curve that was reversed from normal. This Doppler curve told me that I wasn't actually hearing the correct frequency, and it must have been some sort of artifact of the receiving system, but lo and behold, there was an unidentified signal. So how do you identify an unidentified radio signal in the midst of hundreds of other satellites that are above the horizon at any given time? Well, initially we tried a brute force method. This brute force method had us plotting literally the hundreds of satellites that were overhead every given time we heard the unidentified radio signal. And then after we gathered enough data, we were able to start excluding the various satellites where you didn't see them being over the horizon repeatedly. So at that point, we had narrowed down a list of fewer and fewer satellites until we got to the point where there was none left in publicly available catalogs. From here, we began doing some research into satellites that we didn't know where they were. And there was one mission that matched the profile of the data that we were collecting, and that was USA-225. Shortly after the identification of the unidentified satellite as USA-225, I was able to locate the primary downlink frequency and was rewarded by a Doppler curve with the correct orientation, a descending carrier tone throughout the pass until it's set. We now turned our attention to collecting data day after day, week after week, in an effort to refine our radio orbit to one that would allow us to find the satellite visually. A couple of years later, a colleague of ours, Kees Bassa in the Netherlands, was rewarded when he was able to capture video of the satellite passing over his location. Thanks for watching today's episode on USA-225. If you liked what you see, please click the like button below. If you're really interested in satellite tracking, please consider subscribing to our channel. And as always, feel free to leave comments and suggestions for future episodes. Have a good day.